my friend. Welcome to Next Level Women, the podcast for ambitious women who are ready to rise, take consistent action, and reach their next level in business, in life, and in purpose. I am your host, Joy Rowland, your next level mentor, here to help you build confidence, consistency, and courage so you can finally follow through on your dreams. Let's dive in. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this exciting episode of the Next Level Women podcast. I am super thrilled because I have a very special guest, and you guys, you're in for a treat. Her name is Leah, and she does fantastic work with women. And I believe you guys are going to be so blessed. You're going to take, if you can take notes, most of you listen to this podcast while driving, but you're going to want to take notes because there's a lot to learn. Welcome to this show, Leah.
Hi, thank you, Joy, so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. So why don't you start by introducing yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so I am a artist, author, and transformational creativity spiritual mentor. My story, the short version is I've gone from a 25-year career in politics to being a painter, author, and retreat leader. So really have leaned into that power of transformation myself and
Mm.
really have leaned into healing and hope and finding more joy in my life. And my goal these days is to help empower other women to find that as well.
Fantastic. So when you say 25 years in politics, I'm like, did you start when you were nine? How do you look so good after 25 years in politics?
So I literally started when I was 14. And from that moment on, every November for those 25 years, I was involved with something on a ballot until I quit it all about a year ago. So over a year ago now. So yeah, I did start young. And it was just something that I was drawn to at a very young age. I still very much do, but always had this desire to change the world and make an impact in a positive and meaningful way. And when I was younger, politics really seemed like an opportunity to help shift things and impact things and change things for the better. And so I was really drawn to it. And then by the end, it became fueled by a whole bunch of other things, mostly my addiction to success and need to prove myself and the belief that my worth came from external, accomplishments and validations and understanding that that was not the case. But at least at the beginning, it started pure of heart. So.
Yes, I love that you talk about addiction to success. And I want to go back and talk about your success because you have done some very amazing and incredible things. Your resume boasts names like Obama. You've worked with Obama. Like, tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I worked for a consulting firm in DC back in the early 2000s. And we did a lot of work for Obama then. I got the opportunity actually to be, when he announced running for president in 2007, be at that. And so I had really amazing opportunities to show up and be a part of historical things that were changing. And I lived in Washington, D.C., and I worked in 2008 on the US Senate race in North Carolina, and it was the first all women senior level staff team that worked for a female candidate as well. And so, I was able to be a part of a lot of that. And then after that, I came home to Colorado, where I'm at now, and because my mom got sick, and then really got involved locally. And there was a saying back in the day that all politics were local. And so it was an opportunity to get engaged and get in the trenches and make a difference. And I ultimately ended up being the youngest woman elected to my local city council. And then, had a baby while serving on council and really there was a lot of things that I was able to experience. I am always grateful for those experiences and the ability to pave the way and for other women to be engaged because it's so critically important that women show up everywhere. Um, but yeah, it got to the point though where it was again, it was a pretty unhealthy dynamic for my career and what it was fueling and creating inside of me, which was really just fueling this need to be the most successful ever, whatever that even means. And towards in the 2019 kind of area, I found myself in the darkest place that I had ever been. Had chronic PTSD, uh, depression, anxiety. I call it my addiction to success. And then when inevitable failures came, I filled that void with alcohol. And so I was not in a very good place. And even after though a suicide attempt, what I still couldn't quite snap myself out of the fact that this next success was what was going to, make me happier, make me find joy. And so
Mm.
I, found myself sitting at a table with community leaders talking about running for higher office. As crazy as I say that now, it seems. I mean, that was what I believed. But through that little time period and there, it really started to become evident that if I didn't change something, I was likely not going to be here. And as a mother
Mm.
who was perpetuating generational cycles of addiction and trauma, if I was successful in taking my own life, not only was I going to perpetuate that for my kids, I was going to make it worse. And so something needed to change. And so at
Mm.
that moment, I actually went to rehab and wrote my press release to withdraw from my reelection campaign, which was the single hardest thing I to date still have ever done in my life. And
Mm.
but I did, and I withdrew, and I that was really the beginning of my transformation and exit out of politics to focus more on my own healing and then empowering others. Because what I realized is my desire to change the world, um, I couldn't help heal the collective trauma if I didn't heal my own first. And so yeah.
Wow. What you've just shared is truly, truly profound. And I know that so many people will be so blessed and they will feel like they can relate. Like I'm definitely one of them. Um, having experienced some form of depression in my past, postpartum depression that spiraled into something else. So I just want to acknowledge your courage speaking about these issues because I believe the more we are open and honest about the dark things we face, especially as women, I believe we will get to help more people. And like you said, addiction to success. Many of us think that when we have X amount of dollars, whatever that version of success is for different people, we tend to tie our worth, our self-worth to that thing. And inevitably, it's going to come to a head at some point. So I want to just honor you for sharing that. And I can truly relate. So thank you so much. So talk about your healing journey. How did you find yourself? How did you find joy? And I know it's a journey, right? We never get to a place where we're like, oh, I'm healed now, right? But
Right.
talk to us about your journey. How has that evolved for you?
Yeah, so my own personal spiritual journey was really critical to being able to pull myself out of the darkness and understand that there's something more to all of this than just myself. And obviously, that was my kids and they are a really important part of that. But at the same time, it's interesting because I lead women's journeys to Teotihuacan, Mexico now. But I went on my first journey there 14 years ago. And when I went, it was, in that time frame, there were 6, 7, 10 years of my life that were really not great. And when I went, my mother was really sick and her death was pretty imminent. And I didn't believe, I would have called myself an atheist. I didn't believe in anything. And I went, and what happened there was I worked with my teachers and mentors, Emily Greaves and Iva Enright, and they created a container that allowed me to see that spirituality was feminine and that it was colorful and that it didn't come from the ordained, but it came from my own connection. And that experience at that moment, just it was like barely cracking it open, right? It was just the beginning. But it started this parallel track to my trauma cycles and addictions that I think ultimately, little by little, over the years, I would sometimes go, even a year and not do anything. And then I go do something and I feel, reignited. And then, but it was like this slow growth over time, like, slowly the line on the graph going this way up with my connection and practice and articulating what it is that I felt and helped me heal. And, at the same time, that kind of helped reduce the trauma, right? And so, and I think once that point crossed where that spiritual connection and the words and the experience and the art and the creativity all started to come out was really when that was higher and that was more of the narrative of my life than the trauma that had been the predominant narrative, right? And they kind of flip-flopped. And so, it doesn't mean that my trauma is not part of my story or who I am. It's just not the dominant force of my life anymore. So,
Yeah, that's really, really so beautiful. So someone might be listening to this conversation and maybe they're in their dark time, right? They're going through some very dark stuff. In your experience, for you particularly, what would you say helped you to get out of that spot? So when you were struggling with the depression, when you were struggling with the suicidal thoughts, what made you come out the other side? Because I ask this question because not everybody comes out the other side, right? So, what would you say was responsible? Maybe there were a number of things, but can you give us some tips or strategies that would help someone who's struggling right now in their darkest moment? Tell us, how did you come out the other side?
yeah, I mean, it's little by little, right? And I am grateful every day that I was able to lean in and create and transform my life into what it is today. And I certainly honor the journey. It's hard. And there are
Mm,
moments when I didn't know that I didn't feel like, didn't believe that I could do it. But I think one of the things that is so powerful is just remembering the really little things. Like if you're
mm,
in darkness, like find one thing, even if it's like sunlight or one flower or your child's face or just one little thing that makes you feel gratitude or joy. And it's those little bitty things that start to build up. Um, that allow that shift. And it's also self-love, right? Like you can't heal if you hate yourself. And so like giving yourself grace. And one of the things I still do this practice where, things will pop up in my mind, like those cringe moments of life that happened, while I was in my trauma cycles. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe I did that. And instead of looking at that memory with shame and guilt, I literally like visualize it sitting outside of me and just wrapping it with love and grace.
mm,
And, I've sometimes those memories, the same one shows up 20, 30 times over the course, or like, but it's every time just being like, I was doing the best I could. I was doing the best I could. I'm giving myself love and grace. And just that constant mantra of I'm giving myself love and grace over and over. I mean, when I first started saying it, I definitely didn't believe it. um, but over time, it's allowed me to shift into a space where I do believe it. And, I was doing the best I could, and I am just human, and I'm not perfect. And I was dealing with a lot of trauma and a lot of addiction, and I wasn't responding. I was responding to those cycles, and the only
Mm.
way to get myself out was to give myself grace. And so that's one of the little practices that I've done for years and years and years, is just taking those cringe moments and wrapping them with love. So,
So wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, how would you define a next level woman? Like in your own words. So, this podcast is called Next Level Women, and we inspire women to aspire to their next level. Their next level is possible for them. So, what's your definition of next level?
um, I think it's leaning into your authentic self, right? Like connecting
Mhm.
to your own intuition, the divine that's in you, your own creativity, your own voice, all of those things that are, inside of us. And I think layers get put on top, society and expectations and supposed tos and all those things. And but when you shed all of that way away and recognize what's inside of you, I mean, that's
Mm.
really taking you to the next level. So it's at least taken me to the next level. So
Wow. Wow. I love that so much. And that's the same for me. Like, I believe that when you get to the a place in your life where you feel content, you feel like there is nothing else left to achieve, that you are enough, and you find that success and contentment with where you are. That's my definition of next level. So thank you so much for sharing that. So how can we reconnect with our spirituality? How can we reconnect with our intuition? And because I believe as humans, we all have that intuition. We all have that guide inside of us. But for some reason, maybe life, circumstance, it kind of downs that voice. So how can we reconnect to our true selves?
yeah, so for me, it's really been the power of creativity. And so, I believe that we are all innately creative, and that it's inside of us and it wants to come out. And it's through that process that we are allow ourselves to open to a space of transformation. So I've used creativity to process my trauma virtually my whole life. I started as a teenager, journaling and drawing and doodling, and I have journals and sketchbooks and that have color and magazine cuttings and markers and oil pastels and just all of it all in one book that I've dozens of them that I created over the years. And it was my way of taking the energy of that trauma and turning it into something else, turning it
Mhm.
into beauty, turning it into literal matter that was no longer inside of me. And uh, I think that's been a critical part of my journey. And then as I started working with my spiritual teachers and mentors, Emily Greaves, and then ultimately Shiloh Sophia, they gave me the language to describe what I was already doing. And so that's been really amazing to get trained as an intentional creativity cura and have the language to help women understand how they can access what's inside of them already through the power of painting and doodling and creativity. And, one of my favorite little exercises in all of that is just like prayer dots, right? So, I mean, you could do this anywhere, whether you're sitting in a meeting, on the couch and just feeling and just doodling little dots of gratitude or
Mhm.
little dots of love or little dots of releasing. Maybe you're really frustrated in a meeting about the dynamics and the patriarchy is totally present and you're like, please make this go away, and just releasing that into the page. But it's amazing that even that little practice of prayer dots can be so powerful in just transforming that energy. And so yeah, so for me it's been leaning into that power of creativity to and finding the language to describe it. I mean, I've always done it, but being trained and then being able to share that with other women has been a really incredible experience. So,
I love that, especially when you talked about actually taking the trauma and taking it out of our minds and actually making it matter, like physical stuff you can see. That's something I'm gonna take away with me because I never saw it that way. Like when I'm stressed, I color, but I never thought of it as processing whatever I was processing and making it like physical matter. So thank you so much for that. Tell us about the work you're doing now. Tell us, because before we came on air, we're talking about the retreats you have coming up in Mexico. Tell us about the work you're currently doing with women and how the audience can take advantage of the retreat you have coming up.
yeah. So my goal is to create safe, intentional circles of women who can come together and empower each other to heal and grow through creativity and the divine that's in them. You know, for
Mm.
me, my spiritual portal is the divine feminine, but that doesn't mean, you know, whatever your portal is the right portal for you, right? And so allowing women to connect to that spiritual connection that's in them and reactivate it. And I do that through, workshops here in Colorado, as well as then intentional creativity, medicine painting, divine feminine retreats in Teotihuacan, Mexico. And so we spend time in and around the magical pyramids, the ancient Toltec pyramids there, really activating the the energy of Mother Earth. Tonantzin is the pre-Columbian goddess who was essentially, Mother Earth, and activating her energy, but connecting to that everywhere. And the goddess is so many places and represented in so many different ways and cultures all over the world, and just reconnecting with that, and Guadalupe and yourself and that creativity. And so we spend time among the ancient pyramids. We do a day trip to Mexico City to visit Frida Kahlo's house, who is the matriarch of intentional creativity. I mean, she truly processed so much of her trauma in her life through her art. And then we go visit the Tilma of Guadalupe. And then we culminate the whole thing with a hot air balloon ride over the pyramids. Really, this idea that we can dream our own dreams into reality and take it to the cosmos. So we paint, we draw, we dance, we sing, we enjoy, circles of women empowered by this idea that we can heal and grow together. So.
Wow. So tell us, how can people take advantage of this? Like, is it your website or Instagram?
Yeah. So all of the information is on my website. It's findingfantasticjoy.com. And you can find out everything there. I'm also on Instagram as Finding Fantastic Joy and LinkedIn as Leah Johnson. So you can find me there.
Awesome. So, listeners, I'm going to grab all of those links. It will be in the show notes so you can go check out Finding Fantastic Joy. I love that the name has joy in it. So, love, love, love. Thank you so much. Before I let you go, Leah, do you have any last words for our listeners?
Yeah, so one of the things I've been saying a lot recently is, I had a 25-year career in politics. I am overtly aware of how the world is. But
Mm.
I don't believe we can change the world by living in it as it is. We have to change it by living in it as we want it to be. And so that's why I show up in joy and this creative transformational change, because we have that power if we choose. And so I hope you choose, and I hope this inspires you just a little bit to create something today.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. It's truly been a joy having you on the Next Level Women podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, look at that. You made it till the end. If this episode spoke to you in any way, do not just let the inspiration fade away. Turn it into action. Come on, join me inside the Next Level Women membership. There is no contract, it's month to month, and you get to cancel anytime. And many people stay because of the transformation. The Next Level Women membership is where you will get weekly coaching, accountability, and a sisterhood of women who are walking this journey with you. This is where you will stop doing it all alone. You will start rising with support and community. This is where consistency becomes natural, confidence becomes effortless, and your goals finally become your reality. Use the link below to join me now inside the membership and step into a community that will help you reach your next level. And you might find your new best friend in the community. You might find your new client in the community because you get to promote your business. You get to promote the things you're working on. And hey, if today's message has inspired you, please share it with another woman who's ready to rise. And don't forget to leave me a 5-star review, because when you leave us reviews, so many more people find the podcast and more women join this movement. Until next time, remember, you are not behind. You are becoming. Sending you lots of love. I truly mean that. I'll see you next time.